today we are here with Coach Lee Forrester. So I've been very excited about interviewing Lee. We've been mixing in some of the same circles. So I'm really, really glad she's here today. And I'm going to start by reading out her bio. Okay. Coach Lee is a best-selling author, a registered nurse, and a health coach. She draws profound inspiration from her own childhood struggles, having triumphed over self-image issues and weight challenges. Lee specializes in guiding women, particularly those navigating their 40s and 50s, to reclaim control over their bodies, enhance confidence, and attain peak health. She does this by prioritizing holistic well-being with a strong emphasis on nutrition and exercise. This sounds awesome, Lee. It sounds like we all need one of you in our lives.
It does make a difference, especially in the long haul.
And nutrition and exercise are such basic building blocks for a well-balanced and stress-free or less stressful life.
Definitely. It's for many getting into that habit and making it a priority.
Right. And that sometimes can be a struggle, making it a priority. Why is that?
Because we sometimes don't want to fix things until they're broken. And it seems like for women in particular, it seems like it's a luxury or it's an extra thing. And they're so used to being caregivers or givers that sometimes they almost feel guilty about taking care of themselves, actually. But they want to feel better. But it's time and just bringing it to the top of the list. So it's important.
Yeah. And I've experienced that myself, like feeling guilty for self-care. Although I'm okay with like exercise and diet. I'm okay with exercise and diet, but I assume that for other people, they would feel the same way, like as I do about other aspects of self-care. Like it's easy to feel guilty, or I remember feeling like self-care was kind of a namby-pamby thing. It was for like weak people or people who were old or infirm in some way. It wasn't for like capable, strong people like me, right? And that was a big limiting belief that I had to like hurdle over. Like, have you experienced clients that have these issues too?
Yeah, I mean, self-care is getting a lot of buzz right now in general. And I don't know that in the past it was called that. It was just something that it was called looking after yourself.
Right.
It was more of a look after yourself.
Yes.
And I think women almost need permission to look after themselves because, well, who else is going to do it? You're looking after everybody else, your house, your job, your family, your kids. And it's basically, I think it's the old look after yourself. When people say that, often people say, well, look after yourself. It is that. Now, I just think we've framed it and given it a name and we're highlighting it.
Yeah, it is kind of like a throwaway comment, though, that we say, right?
It is. Look after yourself is a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
Self-care, I think, is less so. Because you almost have to think about that. And like, what is, for some people, it's like, well, what is self-care?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do I do for that? Why do I get it? Who's going to come and do that? Right. And it's different for different people because it depends what's important to you, what makes each individual woman feel good.
Yeah, it's true. It's true because I have friends who like getting their nails done and going for facials. And don't get me wrong, like I like a facial every so often, but you know, I need the basics. Like I need nutrition, I need to cook for myself, I need to do a bit of exercise, move my body, you know, like going for a massage, yes, is nice, but it's a secondary thing for me. But for my friends, like for them, they really need the massage first before they exercise.
Okay. Yeah. So they prioritize that. It is important to find what makes you feel good. What is the thing or things that make you feel good? And what are the things that make you feel extra good that you don't do as often? But maybe you would if the opportunity arose, or what prevents you from bringing that up to the top of the list?
Right. Yeah. Like examining what does prevent you from doing those things. What's
Right.
stopping you, right?
Right.
So
No.
important. And especially if self-care and taking care of yourself hasn't been modeled for you, like in your
Right.
former years.
Yeah, that wasn't really, I didn't really see that modeled. That wasn't a thing. Generationally, culturally, that was, no, that was not done. You almost
Right.
have to get to where you are exhausted and you flumped onto the couch. Well, just let me just have a minute, will you?
Right. Right.
It was
Right.
kind of like that. But your mother
Yeah.
was done at that point. And
Yeah.
she almost had to, I know my mother still feels like she has to justify herself if she's going to sit or she's not going to cook on a Friday. And she needs to give this, whole spiel about why she's not going to do it. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to do
Yeah.
takeout or whatever, do that. Why? You don't have to explain it. But women most, I think, like they have to feel like they have to justify themselves. It's very
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it shouldn't be that way, right?
It shouldn't be that way. And especially now we have so many things available to us. But, you can't give from an empty space or an empty vessel. Some people say
Yeah.
they can't even give unless they're overflowing. And so,
Mm.
how do you want to show up for yourself, never mind anybody else? How do you
Mm.
want to feel? How do
Yeah.
you want to feel?
Right. 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 And then if you're sick and tired of feeling a particular way, what are you going to do to change it then? Right.
Right. And then you've got to have that, you believe that you can have it. You got to have deservability, desire, but
Mm.
deservability is really important. Um, and that you're worthy. Because if any of those are missing, then you feel guilty doing that.
Mm.
Had a lady that she had dedicated her life to. Well, she had a full-time job, but she made dinner for her. She told me that she works at home on a Friday and she could go for a walk on a Friday, but she always liked to cook for the boys. She felt guilty that they would be left to their own devices. Ironically,
Mm.
being men and boys, they really don't really care that much. That was something that she felt guilt that she would go for a walk. And when she told me how old the boy, well, I said, well, how old are the boys? She says, well, they're 20 something. I was like, okay.
Well, they're adults.
I think your 20-year-old boys probably pretty savvy with their phones. They could get something delivered or they could eat
Yeah.
out. I think they're going to be okay. But she
Yeah.
had to deal with her guilt about that as being a mother, and I'm letting them
Mm.
down. I'm happy to report that she has made peace with that. The boys are fine, and she's getting to do something on a Friday.
Oh, well done. Well done. Having a positive impact in
In
her
fact,
life.
they're supportive of her doing that. Sometimes you just have to speak up and
Wonderful.
ask.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another thing we don't do that well.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Speaking up and asking. And on that note, I noticed that your best-selling book is called Speak.
Yeah,
It's called
right.
Speak. Can you tell us what inspired your
Yeah.
best-selling book, Speak?
Speak is because I didn't speak in my early years. In fact, the first chapter is called The Quiet Years because I didn't speak. I was pretty quiet unless I was spoken to, which was the order of the day. Speak. You don't speak unless you were spoken to. Nobody was really
Mm.
asking your opinion. Nobody really needed to know. You knew your place. You kept quiet, stay below the radar, stay out of trouble, don't cause any
Mm.
problem, and just do that. Now, I'm not saying everybody followed that. I was the
Mm.
firstborn, which I think has something to do with it. They tend to be a little bit more law abiding and thoughtful and what have you. And so I didn't do a lot of speaking. I didn't speak my mind. I didn't express myself. And the first chapter addresses the quiet years, but how I use that now to turn that around and to encourage other women, because there are still women who are, yeah, I'm not saying they don't speak, but they're not expressing their true self. And
Right.
so it's been a becoming. It wasn't a light
Mm.
switch, but a becoming, and to examine who you are, what you want, and be okay with asking for it. Be asking for it doesn't mean in the professional world for men it's being assertive. For women, it's considered aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't always want to appear that way. So we just, just put up with things.
Yeah.
But we're still
Yeah.
complaining about it because we're not happy. So we just complain amongst our friends and don't do anything.
Well, that's what having a good group of girlfriends is for, right?
Right. So maybe we should be keeping each other accountable and say, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the journey that you went through from not speaking to,
Mm.
like speaking your mind?
Yeah, I used to joke that my best friend did all the talking for me for the first 18 years because I would speak in small circles where I felt safe and comfortable, but certainly not in any bigger crowd or make any. I just wanted to be compliant. I think I wanted to make everybody happy, be compliant, not say anything that just go along, keep the peace. That seemed to be a place to go. But at the same
Mm.
time, and I tell people, watch those quiet ones because they might be quiet on the outside, but you have no idea what's going on in the inside of people. It's kind of like kids and
Right.
adolescents, that you see the tip of the iceberg, but there's 2/3 of it below the surface of the water, and you have no idea what's going on with those folks. So don't underestimate those folks. They often, in their quiet and silence, they are thinking, they are pondering, and sometimes they are plotting.
Yeah.
And actually, they can be very powerful because they're not shooting off on their mouth all the time. They
Mm.
are quietly contemplating and thinking. And so over time, I just noticed that it's almost like a spirit of defiance in a way, until
Mm.
you get to the point where are you going to be squashed or you're going to speak up and get what you want or be what you want or go against the
Mm.
grain or do something different or dare to challenge a notion. And so it's been evolving over time and giving myself permission to do the things I wanted to do. I joked that I had run away as an adult because I needed to see who I was when I was by myself, being who I was, as opposed to being under the, jurisdiction, as it were, of my parents or family or extended family and what I thought they expected of me.
Right. Right.
But some of that is not that they said anything. Sometimes it's our perception and our belief, and we run with
Right.
that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
the time came and I did different things and did some exciting things and maybe bold or courageous things. And you bite off a bit more. And you're like, well, that's okay. And nothing happened. Well, I guess I could try something else. And then, then slowly over time, um, discovering your voice or deciding that you want to do the things that you really want to do. And
Right.
sometimes that can be because of a massive life change or something happened, something pivotal in your life that made you kind of stand up and pay attention. You're like, oh, this is a real thing. We're in this movie called Life, and they're not remaking it. So let me get it right the first time.
Yeah. Did that happen to you?
There are definitely some things that happened along the way that made me look at things differently. And then I was also introduced to um, uh, I guess it was coaching, but it was I joined I don't want to call it a company, but they started to speak about different ways of thinking that had
Mm.
me thinking like what? Because I hadn't heard any of some of these thoughts before. And so I quietly
Mm.
sat in almost like the back of the room, but it was on a Zoom. I don't know how many people were on it, but it was a lot. And just quietly, as I do,
Mm.
observed and took in what I could take in. But there was a lot of mind-blowing, shattering concepts that were discussed. And
Mm.
I was like, wait. Like, to get to a point in your life where then you discover something is really very different than you thought it would be or could be,
Yeah.
like that you can change your thoughts and beliefs in your mind. That's crazy when you first
Mm.
get that notion. And
Yeah.
then you start to go down that road and explore it, and it can be kind of fun. A little bit scary initially. I'm like, what are these people talking about? Because some of the concepts were they were new. But once I got a taste of that, it was just like I was really hungry for it because I knew that then there was more.
Yeah. And when did that happen?
That has been happening probably in the last, let's see, within the last 4 years for sure. 5, I was definitely looking. But 4 and 3, and that's when I've just been, running down this the discovery hall, exploring, learning, and really paying attention to what I think and feel, and just like it's just like a different era, a different chapter in life, which is kind of really exciting. It's exciting because this is what I coach women on, and at a time in their life when many of them think that there's nothing else they can do, or they can't change direction, pivot, change course. And there are many people, many great people in history that have done things well down the road in their life. And it's out there for the taking. And that's very exciting. To have written a book or two is like kind of wild, because probably certainly 5 years ago, I wouldn't have done a thing like that.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't be on social media. I wouldn't be on any kind of video thing talking to anybody about anything. That would be ridiculous. Who would do a thing like that?
Yeah.
So you just never know. You'd never know, I think, what you're capable of. Until sometimes you're pushed in the corner, or you decide you want something else and you're going to go seek it.
Right. It's interesting. You're reminding me of something that I heard recently. And it was, if you look around at people and you think that they're ahead of you, or that you got started later, like you're a late bloomer, it's probably because you were in survival mode for a lot longer. And then, but the benefit to that is that you have all that wisdom and maturity, so that when you really do get going and you decide, like, I'm going to thrive, I don't need this anymore, I don't need survival mode, and you decide, then you have all that wisdom and maturity and to back you up, and you just take off. And those are the people that, as you said, that start in there a bit later, in their 40s and their 50s. Like
right.
Me. I'm like you.
Right. I was definitely, I thought I was a late bloomer in a lot of things, in a lot of ways. And I mean, the irony and the fun of it is that, I wouldn't say necessarily that people would be surprised. I think I might have been one of the latter people to the party. And I think other people probably saw some of these things based on things and said, and I was one of the last people to figure it out. I don't think they would be that shocked, and people so far seem to be supportive.
Yeah.
Not that really matters, because you're going to do what you want to do,
I'm not
right?
surprised. You're a wonderful person, and you've probably got a beautiful community of friends around you. And I'm sure, I'm not surprised to hear that.
Right. But sometimes we don't see those things in ourselves. I spoke to a lady today, and she's I want to say she's in the mid 60s, maybe. She looks phenomenal. I mean, she looks thick. She looks great, and doesn't love her job, doesn't know what she wants to do, doesn't know why she wants to stay in this state, doesn't know where she would move to, feels frustrated because she's sharing a house, has a roommate situation, and just didn't expect to be where she is at this stage of her life, with these unknowns, uncertainties. And sometimes we just have to, it's easier said than done, let go of that in terms of what society thinks, or even what you think. Maybe you're meant to be where you are right now, starting all over again.
Yeah.
There are many people who are at that age, and they've been doing what they've been doing for a long time, and they've settled into a cadence of whatever, and they're quite honestly kind of bored and just don't really have any projections for anything they'd like to do, be, or have. So I don't know, maybe not knowing where you want to be and what you want to do next is actually maybe a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. And, who wants to conform?
Who wants
Right?
to conform or be bored or just be ho-humming and, have your dinner at 5 and you sit and watch the television and then you go to bed and you get up and Mondays you do this, Tuesdays you do that. That's all good if that's fulfilling and that thrills you, or you're just okay with it. And if you need something a little bit different, I think I've always been that different kid anyway, but except when I was a child, being different was more different than anybody could deal with. Now it's okay to be a bit quirky or a little bit neurodivergent, but then you were just weird and something was wrong with you. There was no place for that. So it was hard to try to be normal, whatever that was, when I was just a little bit different all the time. I thought a little different, played a little different. I was socially awkward. There was a lot of things, and it just made it more frustrating because you're trying to be like the other kids, and I was never going to be like most of the other children.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think
I had all the things, arms and legs, and I did all that. From a distance, I looked like everybody else, but
you're not an alien.
Just march to a different beat. And
yeah.
Now it's thankfully more acceptable that a person can be themselves.
Unique. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting from this conversation, I want to bring it back to your coaching business and your book. So I'm getting that you've been coaching for how many years?
Probably a handful of years, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. I started a little bit ago. I was kind of working on it. I was doing personal training initially, which was also kind of a fun thing to do at this time of life. I went to the school with the classes I did were mostly the boys. They were mostly boys. It was like maybe two other ladies, and they were mostly like 20-year-old boys and me. It was super fun. It was such great fun. So I did personal training, and that was exciting. And then I started to focus more on nutrition, and then that led into kind of, when you're working with women, it kind of becomes life coaching, to be honest. I give advice on all kinds of things, from speeches at your son's wedding to
wow.
how to get your teenage daughter to do a little bit more for herself in the morning before school. These all comes in the conversation about nutrition and health. And then now, life coaching, and now helping people write their story and publish their book. So never a year ago, I didn't expect I would be certainly doing coaching and helping people with a book. So it's incredible. Yeah.
So tell me, where your coaching business came first.
Yes.
And then you decided to write your book.
Yes.
So can you tell me, first of all, tell me what challenges, before you wrote your book, like what challenges were you facing in your coaching business?
What challenges? I think it's I come from a nursing background. I worked in a hospital. And I talked about this earlier on a platform I was speaking about. When you come from that background, your doors are always open 24 hours a day. I never had to do any sales or marketing. I never had to do a pitch. Never had to invite anybody in. I have to look for my ideal client. Anybody who doesn't feel good would be my ideal client if you're coming to a hospital. And so sales and marketing and switching your narrative and how you see things, that was probably the most challenging thing, because I didn't have to ever do that for most of my working life, to think in that bit. And then, of course, social media and putting yourself out there. So it's a complete flip of the way that I used to work. Right.
Okay. So you would say that was your main coaching challenge at that time?
I think that's my main coaching challenge was certainly, I think sales and marketing, those were was not my arena. But I don't want to keep saying that, because it is my arena, and that's what in fact I do.
Well, we're fluid beings, right? We're fluid beings.
Yes.
So when you wrote your book, how did writing your book, did it help you with your coaching challenge there of sales and marketing?
Yeah, it does help. Certainly, it gives you something else to talk about. Now you're really kind of honing down on who you help, because now I'm helping people to publish also. But it definitely boosts your confidence. I recommend that anybody who's on the fence about it, go ahead and do that. I did one book. This is the one that I did most recently that's been released this week. I'd done one before that, and I call it my gateway book. And I didn't really have any huge intentions about it. It was just a book I felt I needed to write. And if I knew what I knew now, I'd have gone about it differently. However, it's published, it's out there, it's a tribute to nurses, and it's, it's a nice piece of work. So yes, it changes your outlook, because now you're a published author. Now you've got this physical product as well as coaching. And then you can use what's in the book, because it's called A Guide to Unleashing Every Woman's Voice. So it's an instrument, it's not just my story. I didn't want to write a book. First I was born and I went to school and then I did this. That's not that interesting. It had to be so much more than that. And I'm very happy with the way it came out, because it captures all of those things, that periods and eras of my life, but it doesn't sound chronological. And then I went here and then I did that. Yeah. So what? It needs to be more of capturing what women are going on in here, and see yourself there. And how do we get from this place to this place? Because if it's happened to me, it's happened to lots of other people. It's not just unique to me, for sure.
Right. Your processes and your systems will appeal to a lot of people.
Right.
Because it's your personal story, and there are other people out there who can learn from your personal story.
Exactly. And it's enough personal stuff in there, but not so much. It's just feeling like it's just talking about me. I really have tried to include other women who have had that journey, who have felt silenced or trapped or nulled or stifled, or just didn't feel that they could be themselves. And I am hoping really that many women will read it and see themselves in it, see themselves as that person.
Yeah. So can you tell me, when you were writing the book, because this was you said you wrote two books. You had a gateway book and you had this book. And you said that you would have done something different with the gateway book. What would you have done? What would you have done differently?
I think I would have. I think I would have done a little bit more with promoting. I would have had more of a team. I would have pushed for the bestseller status, which is quite novel.
Team?
But I think it was just
a team.
Sorry.
You said you'd push for the promoting and you'd push for a team.
More of a team, collaborators, rather than trying to. And I had a little bit of help, but I would have had more. Like this time, I had people, sharing it, encouraging people to be part of the Facebook group, building a bit more of a community around it. I think it was a fair effort at it for my first book, and I had people in the UK as well as the US buy it. So I'm still pretty happy with it, but and it's still there. It's still a great book. And here's the thing about books: sometimes people write something or they publish something, and then something they did way back or not that long ago now comes up to surface, and it could just be a timing thing. It's still out there. It's still a great tribute to nurses. It's more of my journey from a nurse trained in the UK, and then what life was like coming to the US. So it's still a good story. I'm still pretty happy with it. I'm glad I did it.
So you said that you would, the things you would have done differently would be, you would promote it more, you would have had a team. Anything else?
Yeah, just more community. I did have a Facebook for it, and I think that's probably pretty it. I'm glad I did a few things about it. I had a few radio interviews and what have you in the UK and hear about it. So I did a bit of publicity in that way. I think it was as it should be. Okay. And it certainly can be. It's still there. It's not that long ago. It was just last year. And it certainly could be, like revived or brought back up to attention. right?
I was going to say, like, you have the skills now to launch it to become a bestseller if you wanted to.
Right. So it's not for nothing. And I like the look of it, the feel of it, all the things about it. I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just hoping that at some point, I don't necessarily want to travel there for it, but that I can, because the book was written and based in a town that I trained and local, so I'd like it to pick up more of a local attention.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell me about some of the challenges you faced as an author?
Yeah. I don't know that either of them were particularly challenging, other than it's always good to work with somebody, another set of eyes, kind of like as an editor, to go through and pull out the things that you didn't think of, because other people are going to read it. They're not in your head. They don't know what you're thinking or what your experiences are. So you've really got to make it very, very clear and express fully what it is. So, like, I've read many, many books, and when I'm reading it, I can imagine myself there. I can think it. I can feel it. Like, oh, I can see exactly. She writes so well. He writes so well. I can see it. So you want to be clear. I think for both instances, because much of it came from kind of really from within, I don't feel like it was particularly difficult, because I was just releasing a lot of stuff. And remember, haven't done a lot of talking for, maybe half of my life. So there's a lot of stored material that just is waiting for some place to go. Finally, I get to say what I want to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell me,
yes.
Oh, sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead.
Can you tell me how your life and career have benefited from writing your books?
I think from a personal standpoint, definitely a feeling of like, I can do this. I wonder what I'll write next. I'm already thinking about the next book. So it helps you establish yourself as a published author, helps with your confidence, and sets you up as an authority on the topic that you're talking about. And it's also good as I move towards, the speaking arena, that you have a product. I've been to many retreats and conventions and what have you, and they'll have a t-shirt or there's a CD or there's a book or there's merchandise and things like that. And people like that. They want a piece of you to take home. They got the tote bag. They got the thing with your name on it or your brand name on it. People like that. They really do. And they're looking for you almost to, they won't say it, but I think they enjoy the getting of the, I'm going to call it the stuff, the knick-knack, the books for sure.
Right.
If they got value from you and they enjoyed listening to you, they want more of you.
The souvenir.
The souvenir or anything you wrote. And there's certain people that if they write something, I'll just get that thing from that person because I already know that they're going to deliver.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So do you have any advice for people who are thinking about writing a book?
Do it. Write it. Do not delay. Get help if you need it. Get mentoring if you need it. And I suggest you probably need some kind of support. But I would not delay it. Pick a time when you want to have it completed by. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be written. The data is there are only about 3%, that's a very small number, of people who actually finish writing their book.
Wow. Yeah, that is a very small number.
It's a very tiny number. And the first book, I kept saying, I'm going to write a book. And I just got to the point where I was like tired of hearing myself say that. I'm like, if you're going to write it, then write it and stop talking about it.
Yeah, right. You're not the first person to say that to me.
Oh, funny. Or stop talking about it and just forget about it.
Yeah.
And I had a ton of stories. I just had so many stories. I'm like, I think I need to write this down.
Right. Yeah.
Good times.
Well, Thank you, Coach Lee. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing and for
Yeah.
being here. If somebody wants to connect with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at coaching, Be Coached by Lee. And YouTube, I've got Lee's Nutrition and Coaching on YouTube.
Right.
And then my website is becoachedbylee.com.
Yes.
So that's Instagram and YouTube and my website. And I'm also on Facebook by my name, just my name.
Wonderful. Yes. And I will put all these links and information in the captions to this video.
Perfect.
Yeah.